I personally feel that if you really want something to happen, if you really want to feel that change, and if you believe in that change, when you put your conviction out there, then you really need to learn how to take that risk. My family is from the Bollywood industry, but for me, since childhood, I've always been into athletics and sports. One of my martial art brothers, he told me about, why don't you check Shaolin? So Shaolin Temple is a full famous temple for practice of Buddhism. And then after 1.5 years of living in the temple as a foreign student, I got adopted as a first Indian to be adopted as a warrior monk. I cracked the whole idea of, convincing my parents, and then boom, I'm off to China.
How were you not scared to go?
Initially, my family kind of was confused. They were confused. They were just like, is he okay? Our son is becoming a monk, and he's never going to marry. He never doesn't want to, come back to the whole living in the city. I wouldn't advise anybody to do this, but yeah, I had to actually.
Harshh.
Hi, Shivani.
Welcome to Millennial Mind.
Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. We've been in contact for a long time, so I'm very happy you're in Mumbai. I mean, you live here, but I'm happy I'm in Mumbai and we're finally doing this. So, for people who don't know who you are, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, firstly, thank you for having me here, and I'm glad that I was bugging you since a really long time. Like, hey, I want to do something. Can I come on? Can we do something together? So, a little bit about me is I'm from Mumbai. I'm from Bombay, born and raised here. I have been a Jew boy. I've been to Jamnabai Narsi School, the most famous school of Mumbai, and my family is from the Bollywood industry.
Right.
And but for me, since childhood, I've always been into athletics and sports.
Right.
So I started playing football, soccer. We started playing football at a very young age. And as soon as I reached my 10th grade, my junior high, and that's the time when I started taking it very seriously. And then I started playing pro soccer, pro football.
Okay.
Moved to Milan. In Italy. I was in Italy, in Milan, playing for the AC Milan junior team under 16. Then I came to Leicester to play for 6 months, Leicester City.
No way.
Yeah, I barely did any studies in the 11th and the 12th grade because it's so important out here. And then my mom was behind me, and like, oh, you have to study, you have to pass your board exams. And then life happened. Getting a bachelor's degree, went to Canada.
Wow.
And just a little bit about me. Like I love films. I love playing soccer, being an athlete, and I love reading and stuff like that. So I've been a very family-oriented person.
So you love films, but you're not in Bollywood?
I am in Bollywood. I'm an actor. I am an actor, but the journey has been really very transcending into different spaces of my life. So starting off with being an athlete, a sports person, focusing on education. And then being a very confused child where didn't have any clarity as to what I want to do, because there's so many possibilities that are there to venture into. Your family business is there because you have a degree, so you can actually venture through your degree. You can get a job in some corporate companies, and then if people keep on talking around you, you get peer pressure, or you start overthinking. So I was a really confused adolescent at that period. After 18, and then. A very, very interesting thing that happened to me was, so I started playing football again after I finished my graduation. I moved back to India, and I was so confused. I didn't know what to do. I got an internship at Times of India, the famous newspaper publishing in India, that is. So I was just like, oh, this is what I really want to do. And I was like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it in my gut. It's just for my mother's sake, because my mom's side of the family, they're Gujaratis, and my nana and nani, they all are doctors and everything. So my mom was like, oh, you have to study and stuff like that. I mean,
same for me,
right? So for me, I was just so confused. I was lost. I was just trying to figure out my way out, and I was like, the only way out for me is to getting back to football. But when I got back to football, in India at that point of time, there wasn't much scope because of the infrastructure, the way they were, cricket and Bollywood are like the two most biggest things of India.
Yeah.
So football had no weightage over here. So I was like, there's no scope over here. I played pro football at a very young age, and then now I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Then I had a knee deformity. I had an extra bone that grew in my knee. It's called osteochondroma.
Okay.
For which I had to undergo a surgery.
Right.
So through the while the surgery was going on, the doctors found a tumor attached with it, with my thigh muscle, which was non-malign.
Wow.
So luckily, yeah, and then a small surgery became a really big surgery, and then for 4 to 5 months I was bedridden, I was crippled, and I couldn't move an inch. I was in so much pain. My mother had to go through so much of, sleepless nights because she used to ice my knee because she saw how much of pain I was in. I had stitches around my knee, and it was a traumatic phase of my life. That 6-7 months was really traumatic for me.
How old were you?
I was about 21.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I was speaking to someone about this. Going through that age of, I think, in your early 20s,
Right.
you're already figuring yourself out, aren't you? That's how I felt. I felt when I left uni. I was like, I'm an adult now, but I'm not really an adult because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Being bedridden for 6 months, I had a friend who was bedridden for a year.
Oh my God.
And she said it was the hardest thing in the whole world. And I think we're so busy with our lives at the moment, all of us, that we just say, oh, I wish I could just relax. And my friend said that to me. She said, there's no feeling in the world than just not being able to get out of bed. She's like, it's the hardest thing I ever had to do. And I never thought I'd mentally get through that. So how did you mentally push through that?
For me, I actually hit depression when I was in bed because I didn't know what to do, because I'm so used to being an athlete, I'm so used to movement.
Yeah.
And even we as humans, we're just so used to, walking around and, going to places, going to college, going to uni, going to school. So for me, just being on bed was something which was, and then, having my leg, with these holes, dressing of, around my stitches it was just really bad. And so for the way I started looking at it was, I don't think anybody's being able to help me, because we had physios who were coming home.
Right.
And they weren't really helping me much because, before, because they were sports physios. But sports physios, they need to look at me as just a regular human being.
Right.
To make me just stand and carry my own body weight. And then slowly taking the first step, because of cutting that extra muscle in my thigh muscle, there was a hollowness in there because of the tumor. So I was kind of, putting more weight on the right side, and I was limping and walking. So they were like, oh, you can't do that. So I was like, what do I do? You need to tell me. Like, you're telling me I can't do it, so you tell me what's the solution. So they weren't able to give me a solution. I really started looking into reading yoga books. So yoga was something which was like, happened to me because just two lanes away from my house, there was this yoga teacher. His name was Abhay Guruji. And he was like this force of energy who used to come home and he used to give me like breathing classes, and he used to give me this positivity.
Really?
And yeah, he used to always be like, oh, come on, you have to be, wow, you just can't be sitting, you need to get up, started giving me a lot of moral support, which I really needed at that time. My dad was busy, at his shoot, he was working. Mom was the one who was at home, and there's so much only a mom can do because she has to run the house as well. Of course. Right? So for me, my yoga sir was trying to give me that motivation, but I was still feeling there's something missing, I know myself, that voice in my gut. So I started doing a lot of research about alternate medicine. Okay. So I went down south of India to Ayurvedic medicine. I was trying to see if something can help me, what kind of issues do I have. Then my father has business partners in Thailand. Right. So I started to reach out to them and trying to see if, something can happen. So this is all R&D that I was doing, and my search narrowed to Chinese medicine.
Right.
So Beijing Hospital is the world famous hospital for a lot of treatments that take place. But whatever money I was saving, actually I was saving money to go for Tomorrowland. Yeah, I know, I get that quite a lot, but...
It's funny, I'm laughing because I know where your story is going, so that's why I'm laughing. Because you're like, I'm saving money to go to Tomorrowland, but I use that money for...
Yeah, so before my surgery, the whole idea was coming back from Canada, getting an internship at Times of India was to save money, and everybody was hype talking about Tomorrowland, oh, you gotta go to Belgium, it's like crazy.
Yeah.
It's
I still haven't been, I wanna go.
I haven't been there either. Anyway, so that was the whole idea. So Beijing hospital, and it was turning out really expensive for me.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, like they said they can help me because I shared some of my reports with them, but they were too overpriced for me. And then one of my martial art brothers, friends, brothers I call him, he told me about, why don't you check Shaolin? So Shaolin Temple is a world famous temple for practice of Buddhism, but that's where the Zen Buddhism was founded.
Right.
That's where Kung Fu was, became a bigger deal. I'll come into the history later. And then medicine was another pillar of Shaolin Temple. So he said, why don't you look into the medicine section of Shaolin Temple?
Right.
I said, why not? So I tried to reach out to them and there was no reply because, it's a temple, it's up in the mountains. I was seeing pictures and I'm like, I doubt they'll be able to do anything.
Right.
So 3 weeks passed and I got a reply from them, from the Foreign Affairs office saying that, yeah, we can help you. So that was my cue, like, okay, there is hope. There is like a, ray of light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to always go in the whole darkness to your depression or frustration that was happening. So for an athlete, it was more of like a mental trauma.
Yeah.
If I wasn't an athlete, it wouldn't be taking such a mental toll on me. And then so it was just there was a lot of back and forth communication, and then they shared their requirements. The protocols that I have to follow. We have to pay the fees, get an invitation letter, get the visa, the Chinese visa for 6 months.
Right.
But the biggest step that I had was to convince my parents because, being an Indian, my mom being Gujarati, dad being a Rajput. So for them, they were like, oh, why, you've been to Canada, you've been to Europe, you've been to America.
You've done it all now.
Yeah, you've been to most of the continents, so why do you have to go to China out of all the places? So for them also, it was like, we don't know anybody in China because that's the first kind of instinct that comes to any parent, in India, because we are still living with our parents, it's a very... we are still in each other's lives. Basically, we are still in each other's faces all the time throughout the day. Like, as soon as you wake up and until you go to bed, it's how it is. So convincing mom and dad was a tough cookie, but I cracked it.
Okay.
I nailed it, and then.
Tell me how you did that. A lot of people ask me this all the time because they say, how do you confront your parents with certain decisions? But I'm a girl, so I would like to hear it from a boy's perspective. How did you convince them?
I wouldn't advise anybody to do this, but yeah. I had to actually cook up some story with my friend who told me about Shaolin medicine.
Right.
I told him, you have to talk to them. You have to, give them like an emotional thing. That this is like a one-time opportunity. And we are like in India, people are like really emotional and they have like the soft spot that it's for my son's well-being and this and that. So I played the emotional trump card basically.
Your mom's watching this, yeah?
Yeah.
It's funny because my parents do that to me. They play the emotional card. Oh, you're not going to get... When I was, I think I was 18 or 19, my brother had decided he wanted to go on holiday with his friends. And he booked it. And I would never do such a thing, okay? So I'm the older one. And my dad was like, Akshay has chosen to go on holiday with his friends this summer. And as a punishment, I'm going to book a holiday without telling him. Okay, but my brother didn't care. He was like, I don't want to come on your family holiday anyway. At this point, my mom and dad were like, you have to come. And I was like, I'm not coming on holiday with just you and mum. And my parents were like, okay, fine. Then 10 o'clock at night, my mom comes into my room. Like you said, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Shivani, one day you're going to get married. And you're going to really regret not coming on this holiday with me and dad. And you're going to get married and have kids, and you're going to want to have this relationship with your kids, and we may never be able to go on holiday ever again, and you're going to remember this trip for the rest of your life. Of course I had to go. I had so much guilt inside me, and now I'm like to my parents, I know what you're doing, stop guilt tripping me to everything. I'm not doing it. But I think it's an Indian thing. We know we can play on those heartstrings. Yeah.
So it was basically just the roles were reversed in my case.
Yeah.
It was difficult to convince my parents because my dad is a really tough cookie to crack.
Really?
Yeah, because he comes from like this whole disciplined background, and the whole action family in Bollywood. He's like really a health freak. So for me, convincing my dad was more difficult than my mom. Mom is mom is in my team.
Of course.
I'm a mama's boy. So and dad is he's like the strict one because he's barely been around while growing up because of his work. He's always shooting away out of the country.
So what did he want you to be?
My dad was really pushing for me to be a football player.
Really?
He really supported me in those sense.
Wow.
And then once I got my graduation done, my bachelor's degree from Canada, and that's where he's like, it's your life now, you decide what you want to do. It was like the doors open to the film world, the doors open for you, whatever your degree is. So, but anyway, so then I cracked the whole idea of, convincing my parents, and then boom, I'm off to China.
How crazy though, because
after 5 months, 5 months post surgery.
Going to a place in Europe or even coming to India. I don't really know anyone here, but it feels like home. Right? I feel like so connected to everyone. I feel like I've met amazing people. I kind of speak Hindi. You've seen my Hindi. I can
Yeah,
understand
I can,
it, but it's broken, right? It's not great.
It's cute, yeah.
It's what?
It sounds cute because you have it like, you know, jumbled and mixed.
Yeah.
The whole,
I thought you were like, it's
the
not
whole
good.
genders are mixed.
I thought you were like, it's not good. I was like, huh? What? No. It's okay. When you go to somewhere like China, you don't speak, you can't even understand it, right? Like, obviously. And you know nobody there.
Right.
How are you not scared to go?
It was instinct. There was a little bit of fear, but honestly, there was a lot of surrenderance that I did. Because I personally feel that if you really want something to happen, if you really want to feel that change, and if you believe in that change, when you put your conviction out there, then you really need to learn how to take that risk. You need to take that big jump, that leap, you know, like the big leap of faith, you know, it's like this.
Of course.
So,
So what happened when you got there?
so I got there like post sunset.
Right.
It was it's pretty dusky, and it was almost winter's time because it was in the month of October. I got there 2014, and it was snowing like partially, and so the Foreign Affairs office, the main officer, his daughter came to pick me up. So she spoke a little bit of English because she had studied in Canada, like a diploma for a year. So she picked me up, and then we were driving, and it was like, you know, 2 hours away from the airport. And she was like at the airport, she was holding a placard saying, you know, from India, Harshh Verma. So I went and sat in the car. We were driving. So I was asking her, like, you know, sort of questions, which was like, oh, how far it is? Oh, I'm so hungry. What will I get to eat? You know, all these curious. You know, I was just getting curious as a person. So she was like speaking in broken English, but I was understanding it. I was comprehending what she was, you know, trying to explain to me, the routine, the discipline I was talking about mainly. So as soon as I reached the temple, it was like really pitch dark up, you know, like up on the mountains. We drove like really like in the mountain ranges. We went really high, and I remember it was just so dark. I was actually thinking if it's like I've been kidnapped. I had this feeling for like a second I've been kidnapped. So, but then I reached the dormitory. There was this Foreign Affairs disciples home.
Okay.
Foreign students disciple home. And then I went to my dormitory, and there were many students in there. Hardly one student, one German guy was there. And then they gave me a soup. So it's a pure vegetarian. So Shaolin Temple is a Buddhist temple, a pure vegetarian, where they study and follow and practice Buddhist Zen Buddhism.
Okay.
And like I said, about martial arts, kung fu, and medicine, Shaolin medicine. And when I went in the dormitory, this lady, she got me a bowl of soup, which had all these different vegetables. So now I'm allergic to mushrooms, right? So you look at all the barriers that are coming in my life. So I'm allergic to mushrooms, and I didn't know there are like 32 types of mushrooms in China itself. And I didn't even see any mushroom in there. So I was so hungry. So they gave me those, you know, the bao?
Yeah.
Bao
buns.
In Chinese we call it mantho.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Can you speak Chinese now, by the way?
I speak fluent Chinese.
Oh my god.
I speak fluent Mandarin, I speak Spanish, so I became an official translator for the temple after I became a warrior monk. I'll come to that.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Sorry, I got too excited.
Yeah.
So you had a bao bun.
I had the bao bun with the soup, and I had the soup, and later on I got to know that it's mushroom soup, and then I had this really bad ulcer reaction and rashes all over my body. And then next day morning I was taken to the hospital to get an anti-allergy shot.
So you have this soup and you're allergic, okay? Then what?
And,
Are you like, I want to go home right now?
No, actually I didn't think of, you know, going home. Obviously I missed, you know, like home food, mom, you know, mom ke haath ka khana, how we say, you know, mom's home food. And then they gave me an anti-allergy shot, and then I came to the Foreign Affairs office and I did my formalities, and my treatment started.
Right, okay.
So the whole idea was to get fixed over there in the Shaolin Temple pharmacy, the medicine section. So I started doing acupuncture and acupressure therapy on my knee.
Right.
So I used to have 30 needles a day. Yeah. And I used to precisely have these long incense sticks, which used to be stuck on the needle.
Right.
And it used to really hurt because, you know, like 30 needles all over your leg. And there were some certain points for acupuncture, you know, they really hurt you a lot. Okay. Because they keep on turning, you know, have you done acupuncture?
Yeah.
Yes, they keep on turning it, you know, like they keep on rotating it quite a bit.
Yes.
And that's where the whole nervous system gets activated, and the blood that's clogged, blood flow that gets clogged, you know, that gets opened up, and that's how the flow of blood takes place.
Okay. Yeah, when I had it, the most painful part was putting it into my hands.
Yeah, actually the most painful part to put is right under your feet, under your foot, out here.
I'm very sensitive, so they were like, it's not going to hurt. And when they were putting the needles in, I was like, stop.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where I started doing my 3 to 4 months of therapy, and then I
Okay.
started doing my physical training,
Right.
martial arts training, and I saw the place and I was like, I'm in love with this place, because next day in the morning when I went to do the formality, it was like this red structures, green roof, you know, and then whole grey walls and everything. It was just so serene, so beautiful, and I'm like, I'm in heaven.
Wow.
It was just so serene, and later on I'll share. There's a documentary made on me. I'll share that
Yes.
link with you. So it was a wise decision, I would say.
Okay.
And, honestly, I never thought of becoming a monk. And
Yeah, how did that transition? You were saving for Tomorrowland, which is a really incredible festival, by the way. You're saving for Tomorrowland. You actually end up going to China to visit this monastery in which you think you're going to be healed to secure your leg, and then you become a monk. How does that happen?
It took me a while to become a monk. It took
Yeah.
me about 1.5 years before I became a monk. My parents came to visit me in my 5th month. They saw that I was doing well with my leg, and they were really happy with the path that I chose. And they were like, okay, 6 months is not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a good amount. But over there also, when they came, they were like, okay, so now what you're gonna do when you come back home?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't thought about it. I just want to be here. I just want to train, and then I convinced them I want to stay another like 6 months or 1 year. And my dad was like, oh, I'm not going to help you with anything, you just have to be by yourself. I said, yeah, just help me like 50%, I'll manage, I still had a little bit of savings left with me. And then he's like, okay, but then, you really need to fix your life. Like, you need to plan what you want to do. You're already like 21 and a half, 22. So what's your next game plan? And then I said, I don't know. Let me just, let me just be there. Let me just study. Let me just enjoy the whole moment of, being in a monastery, being in a temple. Because in every structure, every corner of the temple, there is so much of wisdom. There's so much of knowledge there. And I feel when you truly surrender to something, that's when that practice accepts you as its own.
So
and that's exactly what happened to me. I completely surrendered myself. I never thought about any kind of pressure from my family. I never thought about any kind of, financial issues. I never thought about what I'm going to do with my life. I was purely just completely in the moment, and I was just doing my practice and my study.
Wow.
And 1.5 years, my savings got over, and my dad had given me a deadline.
Right.
And I told the temple, I told my, the people who was in the as senior monks, I told them that, my Shifu, I told my Shifu, I was like, Shifu, my savings are over now, so I'm going to go back. And I'll see whenever I can come back again, whenever I have my next savings up. And they all were like so sad. They all were just so upset, because when I completed 1 year, that's when a lot of foreign students started coming in the summertime.
Right.
And they didn't know Chinese. So I had started picking up, speaking the language slowly. I started downloading some podcasts. I bought some books online. And I used to really like go in people's faces and, I'd be like, please, can you speak like over here? Like I need it to be translated. So that's how I really learned the language, just purely through listening and obviously having self-interest.
So your savings were over, okay?
And then I told my Shifu that I need to leave because my savings are over.
Right.
So, and then it was just like a very funny meeting. It was just such a funny incident because they all had the meeting, So we have, how there's like a headmaster, like a dean of like a principal,
Yeah.
all right, of a university or a college. So the same way we have the abbot of the temple, Shi Yongshin.
Right.
So he's the Shifu of everybody. So at his headquarter, the warrior monk leader, my Shifu, the foreign students' main master, and other 2 leaders, they who handled a couple of other groups in the temple, warrior monk groups, they had a meeting regarding me. So I was so scared at that point of time. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, where is this going? Like, have I done something? Like, am I in trouble? And
am I actually kidnapped?
am I like, being held like a hostage or something? But then later on when my Shifu came to me and he told me that, you're being promoted to becoming a warrior monk, and these are the vows and oaths that you need to take.
Okay.
And these are your duties. These are the commitments that we'll need from your side. You don't have to pay fees anymore, because every month you're paying a fees, right? Because whether it's for training, whether it's for living, eating, therapy, you have to pay the temple. Which anyone can come to the temple and pays. But for them, it was the first time they were adopting a warrior monk. They never adopted anyone. So for them, it was like a really big decision to make. So when my Shifu told me all these things, and I was just so excited. But there was a small, I was also sad a little bit, because this meant that I won't be able to train with my Shifu anymore, because I was being promoted, right? because he's the
Wow.
Shifu only for the foreign students who come from different countries.
Got it.
So I have a really, really strong relation with him. Shifu was as equivalent to a father. So for me, he is the one who made me a warrior monk. And then after 1.5 years of living in the temple as a foreign student, I got adopted as a first
Wow.
Indian to be adopted as a warrior monk. And then
And what were the oaths and the things you had to take?
the precepts were very simple.
Okay.
So there are two kind of monks. There is a warrior monk and a scholar monk.
Okay.
So warrior monks have duties related to purely to promoting Shaolin culture, purely related to Kung Fu, Shaolin Kung Fu, and training, teaching, spreading, anything and everything related to that. We did have to learn certain mantras, certain chants. That is very important, as a Buddhist practitioner. You
Yeah.
need to know the meanings. You have to study philosophy. So we had Buddhist philosophy classes, we had medicine classes, we had Kung Fu training, we had meditation going on, and there were so many ceremonies and festivities that we were involved in, so we had to take part in it. We had this really huge mess, this dining hall, we call it the Jaithang. And in Jaithang, we 300 monks, so there were about like 150 warrior monks, and rest of them are scholar monks. They all are seniors
Wow.
who practice, hardcore, study of Buddhist philosophy and the chants, the scriptures. They have like so many detailed things and it's like you need to completely dedicate your life to study this.
But how is it being different? Because obviously you live in India. How is it different from being a monk here to being a monk there? I presume your knee got better, right, whilst being there?
My knee was
Okay.
fine. My knee was
So I get the kind of urge to want to go there and being there, seeing your knee get better and seeing the practices. But haven't you been brought up around all of this kind of spirituality, I guess?
Oh yes, definitely. My family is hardcore. I would say right now, of course, I've studied Buddhist philosophy and seen so much of temple life as a monk. I feel religion and being religious and being spiritual are two different things.
Okay.
So in my house, it was more of being religious.
Okay.
Serving Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesha.
Yeah.
All Parvati Mata. Like Saraswati, Lakshmi. So we have all these festivals that happen throughout the year. We have Diwali, we have Holi, we have Saraswati Pujo. All these. So it's a very diverse culture. But I feel spirituality is when you completely go inward. There is nothing that you're attaching yourself to. The only focus and awareness is of yourself. And when there is awareness of self, that means there is awareness of breath. Because Shaolin practice is completely based on your breath practice, your breathing practice.
Wow.
So let me give you a little bit of brief of what the history of Shaolin culture is.
Sure.
So Shaolin was started by an Indian monk called Bodhidharma from south of India.
Okay.
He traveled from south of India to China to spread the teachings of Buddhism, of Zen Buddhism. So he went to the temple, and there was already a temple. So Shaolin means Shao as in like little,
Okay.
and Lin means temple. So Shaolin. So temple in the little forest.
Lovely.
That's why it's called Shaolin Temple. So he went to the temple. He was not accepted in the temple, and later on he meditated in a mountain behind the temple for 9 years. And that's where a lot of monks who were already living over there, they came and saw that, oh, he's not gone back, he's still over here.
Wow.
And then he used to do a lot of imitation kung fu. That means he looks at animals and he starts doing a lot of practice through the animals. So that's where the animal flow started coming in.
Okay.
So animal style kung fu. Then he started doing a lot of breathing practice. They used to see he's doing a lot of breathing practice. That comes from yoga. And then he used to keep on harvesting a lot of plants, a lot of herbs. And this is where the Ayurveda comes. So, and then his martial arts practice was the ancient Indian South Indian martial art called Kalari Payattu. So this is what Bodhidharma had in him, and that's where he practiced there, and then he gave it to the monks in the temple.
Wow.
So this is a brief history of the Shaolin culture and the Bodhidharma.
So what drew you to that so much?
Honestly, I didn't know who Bodhidharma was. I didn't know this all came from India. Like, I was so clueless. I was so zapped. But for me, what drew me was I started being in touch with myself, because playing soccer, playing football, being in this whole Bollywood family, and friends, and everything that was there. You're living a very surface level life, I feel.
Right.
So it's completely very outdoor. It's something which is. I think there are like 4 layers to our soul. Like just the way we have 4 layers to our skin.
Yeah.
So there are 4 layers to your soul. So I feel we on the topmost layer, living a life. I wouldn't say it's a lie, because sometimes you're just adapting to the situation that you're put into.
Correct.
I think that's fair enough. I don't think anything is right or wrong. I think everything is about awareness and the choices that you make. So for me, the main difference was that I started being aware of myself. I started going deeper and deeper and getting to know the layers about my own self. So that's what drew me, that I started going inward purely.
And were you comfortable with that? Because I presume, you know, growing up, just generally in a big family, if your dad was away all the time and you were kind of raised to kind of find your own feet, were you ever aware of your emotions, or, you know, did people speak about them in your family? Did the men speak about them?
Actually, that's a really good question that you're asking me, because just as of yesterday, I just finished a 10-day workshop, an acting workshop, which I feel is also a life workshop.
Right.
Where there are so many emotions that is suppressed inside of you that you haven't addressed or you're not aware about. So in this workshop that I did, I knew about it even when I was in the temple, but in the temple, you know, it's so disciplined, you know, when your practice is your strength. So, you know, you keep on practice the one thing again and again and again. So your mind is completely, you know, dwelled and delved into that one thing.
Yeah.
But when you really sit with yourself, when you really try to understand those emotions, you can call it the childhood trauma, you can call it the things that are not addressed, the suppressed part of your subconscious mind, that's when you truly start addressing them, and when you accept it and you start feeling them and let it pass by.
Yeah.
And this is what I've learned over the period of time right now. So yeah, back in the day, I don't think anybody in my family or in the Indian community, anybody has addressed how you feel emotionally. What's your emotional quotient?
Right.
Because everything is just so, like I said, it's so surface driven. It's about, you know, what degree do you have, what kind of job do you do, how famous you are. So everything is just like, you know, on the outer surface. There's nothing inner, there's no connection with the internal environment of, you know, yourself, of your being, I feel. And so that's why the Shaolin Temple really drew me, was because I'm becoming aware about my own self in a very, I am not finding the right word, but in a very intense manner.
Yeah.
And without, like, you know, judging myself, without being critical about myself, and not having any kind of responsibilities. And I personally started feeling that I have a conscious mind, and we live a very conscious life.
Right.
But you also have a subconscious mind, but that develops through your intention. That develops through the kind of approach that you have towards any situation or any person. And that's why the Buddhist philosophy classes started helping me a lot. And I read so many spiritual books. Right now I'm an actor, and my manager and my team people, they tell me, stop reading these spiritual books, don't be so hard on yourself, read more fiction.
Right.
So yeah, it was a really nice transformation that I had. And coming back to the kind of vows and oaths that we had to take, we practiced celibacy, pure celibacy, for like I was celibate for about 5 to 6 years, which the scholar monks have to do. So warrior monks, when they leave the temple, they can choose to start a family, but they won't be considered a monk anymore, which is me right now.
Got it.
Right. So when you're living in the temple, you have to follow the same vows and oaths as the scholar monks. Of course, like, you know, no wrong speech, no consumption of, you know, killing of animals, no consumption of any kind of, you know, meat or any kind of source of, you know, animals, basically.
Were you vegetarian before you went?
No, I wasn't. I was really hardcore non-vegetarian. I'm not too proud to say that, so yeah.
I love how people say a hardcore non-vegetarian. Yeah, I love it. Okay.
It's just like in the house, you had like so much meat happening every day, and
really,
yeah, I was.
So
my mom is Gujarati, so sorry.
Yeah, go on.
But my mom's pure vegetarian. Like she's cooked for my dad and my sister and for me.
Wow.
But she's never like tasted anything.
She's never had it.
No, she's a Vaishnav. So.
Oh, she's a Vaishnav.
Yeah.
Oh
What
my
about you?
gosh,
What are you?
my bar is a Vaishnav. Yeah, we just went to Srinathji, so that's like,
Oh,
I can't
wow.
believe even she allows it in the house.
Yeah, you know, she
Wow.
just adapted to my family, my dad's side of the family. So, yeah.
So what's interesting to me is you've kind of taken on this completely different philosophy from what you were brought up with, right?
Right.
Looking inwards, talking about your feelings, understanding your emotions, turning from a hardcore non-vegetarian into a vegetarian. How was that for your family to adjust? Because surely they were like, what has happened to you here, right? A lot of the time with people who change their personalities, we forget that people can evolve and change in life. Right? We believe that everyone should stay the same from when they were kids, and if they evolve and change, it's a bad thing. But actually, it's a great thing.
I think so too.
But it's difficult for people to understand that. When I said I wanted to go vegan to my family, they called me an extremist. I've been vegetarian my whole life. So for you to kind of change so much about yourself, how did your family cope with that?
Initially, my family kind of was confused. That yeah, they were confused. They were just like, "Is he okay?" like he's becoming a monk. So there was another big showdown that happened at my house because I used to come to India to renew my visa every year, once a year.
All right.
So I just used to get like either a 6-month visa, but when I got adopted as a monk, so I got the 1-year visa.
Right.
So for them it was something which was really tough to digest, that you know our son is becoming a monk, and you know he's never going to marry. He never doesn't want to, you know, come back to the whole living in the city. So you know how Indian parents, oh, we're not gonna have grandkids, you're not gonna have like a bahu coming at home, you know, all of that, like a daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So for them it was, they were confused, they were concerned,
Right.
they were worried. But slowly, you know, it was my mom who started seeing that I'm so happy in doing what I'm doing. You know, I've lived in the most remotest situation, I can't even explain to you. While I was in the temple, why there were certain duties that you have to do it. And
Right.
it's something which I think, it's not about going in extreme situations and living in extreme situations just because it's not like a punishment. It's something which you just have to do it. It's a duty. You know, there's a priest in a temple in India. His duty is to feed the animals who come around the temple. His duty is to feed the people who come, you know, the people who are underprivileged, people who are below the poverty line. It's his duty to help people. So same way we have our duties as monks. There are certain duties that we have to do. So I've lived in an orphanage in the temple. Around the temple, there were many orphanages that the temple owns.
Wow.
So in China, you know, you cannot leave your property abandoned.
Right.
You cannot like have it not functioning. If they do, the government captures it. So they have to keep on running. If it's like an empty house or flat or like a big huge property or a bungalow, whatever. So you have to keep on making sure that it's running. It's up and running. The government comes to check on you. So yeah, it's really extreme, some stuff out there. But I really enjoyed my time there. There was so much of learning that happened. So for my parents, coming back to your question, my parents were really concerned. But also my mother was very happy, and eventually they decided and they gave up on, you know, trying to talk me out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was so headstrong. I became so headstrong because they also felt that, you know, initially that, oh, it's just one of his phases. He's just going for a few months and he'll be back. It's just like, you know, it's just like, you know, a trend, a fad, you know how it is.
A fad, yeah.
Yeah, fad, exactly. I was actually going to say that. So it was like a fad for a while, but then when they saw that, you know, 1.5 year taking the warrior monk vows and oaths, living in the temple. So one of the major things of the temple warrior monk duties was traveling around the world promoting the Shaolin culture.
Wow.
So through the temple, I was the only non-Chinese on the team who traveled around the world. I came to London as well.
Wow.
That's where you're from, right? So yeah, and I went around like a lot of Asian countries. I went in Israel and a lot of other places, North America, Canada. So that's where we started promoting Shaolin culture. My parents started seeing that. And then when they adopted me, there was this whole big news article came in the Chinese media, and then this director from Shanghai, Alan, he found it very interesting. So he approached the temple, I want to make a short documentary on you. So like the temple, he asked if can I make a short documentary. And this Indian boy who you've adopted as a warrior monk. So then the whole documentary was shot, and then it was released by the Nowness Media. It's a very famous media company in the UK, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Why did you never want to be a full-time monk? Why did you come back?
So in 2017, the temple was adding a new pillar, like a study to the culture called Zen archery. And they were selecting out of the 120 warrior monks, they were selecting 8 monks to go to Guangzhou for intense training in archery, studying the traditional way of archery, studying the philosophy and the theory behind it as well. So out of the 8, I was one of them.
Okay.
Which I didn't want to go. I was so like upset because it was summertime, and you know, summertime is the time when you train the most.
Right.
And you do like this really hardcore gymnastics and acrobatic training, and I'm like, oh, because winters, you know, it's so cold out there.
Of course.
There's like massive snowfall, there's minus 20 degrees, minus 15 degrees, so it gets really, really bad. So the training hours are not much in winters, about 6 hours a day. But you know, in summers it's like 10 hours, 12 hours you can train.
Wow.
And you can like do several other things with your medicine, philosophy, meditation as well. So we went to Guangzhou for 4 months of intense training, and that's where I started asking a lot of questions to myself. That why am I training so much? Like what is happening? Like I've studied so much of philosophy, martial arts, medicine. I've studied acupressure, and now like I'm getting this opportunity to study archery. What am I becoming? Like, what kind of a warrior am I going to be? Because that's when I started reading the Mahabharata and started reading the Ramayana.
Right.
We have Eklavya, the famous character who was a very good archer, who was Duryodhana's student. And then Arjuna, again a very famous archer as well. So he's also famous. So I started reading and trying to see where's this taking me.
Yeah.
What am I getting prepared for? Like, is there a war coming? Is there something that I need to protect? Is there something that's going to go in shambles or something? I don't know. I was getting so many. Through your meditation, you have these thoughts.
Of course.
And I have to address these thoughts. If I just keep on ignoring them, then I'm going to be stuck in a limbo, and by not knowing what's actually happening to my, because then later on when I started meditating, I started speaking to my Shifu on WeChat, because he was not with us in Guangzhou. So he's like, I cannot help you finding your purpose. It's something which you need to find yourself.
Right.
And only through your practice, only through your dhyan, meditation
Yes.
is dhyana. Only through your dhyana you will come to know. So that's where I started understanding that my whole learning, and I found my purpose is to spread the culture, to let people know about this art and what I carry.
Right.
And that's when I decided that okay, now I think I've studied enough.
Right.
And I want to leave the temple and I want to learn more different styles, because when I was in south of China, that's where Guangzhou is, I started discovering a lot of different other southern style of martial arts. I'm like, oh, this looks so cool. Oh, Bruce Lee used to do this. I went to Bruce Lee's hometown as well, in Foshan. Bruce Lee's
Right.
master, Ip Man. I went to Foshan and I started seeing, oh, this is so cool. This style is so different, but the core essence of martial arts is very similar.
Right.
So let me start learning different styles as well. So I told my master, I was like, Master, Shifu, is it okay if I learn different styles? Like, it's very good. It'll broaden your horizons, and I feel it'll make you a very good martial artist. You'll have your own style eventually.
Right.
And then whatever 4 months I had in Guangzhou, I started learning different southern style martial arts. And then I decided that I want to, go to South Korea, to Seoul, to study Taekwondo.
Why? Why all this fighting?
I don't know. I was just so happy in movement. I
Right.
love moving. I like the whole synchronicity between my breath and my muscles. I just love the way it feels.
Okay.
And in martial arts, as a Shaolin warrior monk, the first thing that they teach you is your defense is your attack. So you're not using martial arts to put somebody down or to hit someone. It's to protect your own self, for your own health, and in case of any adversity, to save someone, you can use it.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you kind of did all of that training, and then when did you move back to Mumbai?
I didn't move back to Mumbai until 2020 Jan.
No way.
Yeah, so it was about 2018 end.
Yeah.
That's where I decided I'm going to go to South Korea.
Right.
But then I didn't land up going to South Korea, because some people came from South Korea who were in LA, and they met me in China. They came to visit the temple. They're from the Jackie Chan stunt team. They're very famous, called the Martial Club. Andy Lee, Brian Lee, and Daniel. So they invited me to Los Angeles to come and train with them. So I was invited by the Jackie Chan stunt members to come and train with them in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And then I moved to Los Angeles.
And and what did you do there?
I was training for cinema martial arts, and then in my free time I went to LA Film School to study filmmaking.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I went to theatre school, because slowly I started realizing that I'm born in a film family. Films has always been there in my blood, and I love expressing, because doing martial arts is expressing.
Of course.
And even in school, I was always part in the dancing, in the singing, and the dramatics. I was always there. I was always the winning, and always on top of the list always.
Yeah.
So I try to align my purpose, and I try to see how I can merge the whole passion of my films with my martial arts and my philosophy. And then I was in Los Angeles for about 1.5 years. And just before we had the unexpected pandemic, I moved to India in 2020 January.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? If someone asked you when you were a kid, do you want to be a director or you want to be in films, you probably said no, right?
I didn't have an answer, actually.
Right. And then when you grow older, you realize that some things you're just naturally good at, or some things you're naturally interested in, and sometimes things you don't expect come back into your life.
As a kid, I always thought that I want to be different. I want to be unique. I don't want to be part of the herd,
Right.
I want to, whether you want to call me the black sheep, I would be the black sheep. So for me, I never felt confident until and unless I had something of my own, that I inculcated something of my own, that I have some unique thing to offer. So for me, I think Shaolin warrior monk life happened to me at the right time.
Right.
And for me, I'm really grateful to, my Shifu, my senior monk brothers, who shaped me into what I am today. And very thankful to my family who supported me. And
During that.
And I don't want to stop giving credit to myself, like, I want to thank me. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to be a snob, but yeah, it takes a lot to make decisions. I feel there's so much goes in decision making.
Okay.
I personally feel that decision making decides how courageous you are. Because you never know what's going to happen. But you have to have that faith, you have to have that belief, you have to have that conviction that if this is what you want to choose, your path, your journey, then you have to surrender. And for me, it was, I kept on being in China for 5 years, living in Los Angeles for 1.5 years, then coming back to Mumbai, and then deciding what I want to do. It was all about act of courage.
Yeah.
Because I had faith in my art, I had faith in my study, my practice. That's what drew me, that's what still drives me. And I think honing your craft and honing the idea, honing the craft, honing you being confident, knowing that something that you can offer, you can help people, you can show people. If you can make the change in yourself, then you can make the change in others.
Yeah.
So.
And how are you taking that into acting now? Because now, obviously.
So apart from being in the Bollywood family and being an actor right now, I also Shaolin Temple has a branch of its subsidiary training center in every country. We have one in the UK as well. We have 3 in the UK, in fact.
Okay.
So the branch for the cultural center in India is under my supervision. So I'm the founder of the Shaolin Temple Warrior Monk Academy. You can see this small souvenir from my school to you.
Amazing.
Yes. So we are. I have a team who takes care of the classes. I have trained them personally. I do give classes sometimes as well. Initially, I was when I founded the school in 2021 August. So it's been more than a year now, a year and a half almost. And yeah, we are spreading the Shaolin culture. We teach archery, we teach breathing techniques for healing like Qigong. We teach martial arts, we teach certain philosophy things about Buddhism. And we have self-defense programs for for men and for women, mainly for women because it's in a good location around a women's university. So we want to promote that for women's health.
As someone who's kind of been a monk and gone through that, what's been your biggest learning? And what takeaway can we give to anyone who's listening or watching?
There's so many learnings, oh my God. But for me, I think the biggest learning was to listen. That was just the best thing that happened to me because I through listening, I learned a language, Mandarin, simplified Mandarin, Chinese. Through listening, I learned how to be patient. Through listening, I got to learn how to hear my breath, my own breath.
Wow.
And Shaolin philosophy and practice is purely about your own breath. So my biggest thing was to listen.
People always say you have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah.
And so you should listen more than you speak. It's a lesson I'm slowly learning.
Yeah.
But one that will take time. But thank you so much for coming here. And I know it's far for you, but I really appreciate your time.
It was totally worth it. I'm so glad I've been, like I said, I was trying to be a part of your association for what you're doing, what you're spreading, and the kind of people you're getting on your platform. It's amazing. They're so inspiring, and you're so true to your work and your art. I would call this your art because you're so good at it, right? And I'm so grateful to you for inviting me over here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And hopefully next time when you're here, you can visit my school.
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. I need some more breathing techniques in my life.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for listening and watching this podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching, if you could please press the follow, like and subscribe button, it would really mean the world to me.